All right, on today's podcast, I break down Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, what they are, how to use them, what to focus on, and if you want my or our community support in putting them into practice, we've got you. But without further ado, let's get into the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show, and we're going to dive right into it. Today, we're going to be talking about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Full credit to the man, the myth, Stephen Covey. This was an incredible read, an incredible book, and it reminds me of so many things. Like a student says, I already know, and a master says, thanks for the reminder. And in doing this for 2 decades now, it's really interesting that if I look back in hindsight at every lesson, every breakdown, every breakthrough, it always comes back to the basics, and doing the basics with intentionality and consistency, being completely unattached to the outcome and falling in love with the process. And I was rereading this and going through this, and I found a summary, put it together so we can hit every tip pretty easily, put this into practice and get to work. And it also, and I've talked about him on a few shows recently, my dear friend Garen Jones, who got himself out of a federal prison that he was supposed to be in for a long time by rereading the same book over and over until he became it. And he said the biggest mistake people make when they read is they read to learn instead of reading to become it. And knowing what's happening right now in marketing and business, ads are down, funnels aren't converting, people aren't signing up, they're not applying as much, no one's opting into my lead magnet, no one's responding to my content. It's happening across the board, and it can be seen as either breakdown or opportunity, but it requires our reinvention. The market's going to change. Social platforms are going to change. We're entrepreneurs. Those are the rules of the field, and we can't complain about the rules of the game that we choose to play, or else we can't win the game. And so I want to break these down. I want to go over them. I want this one to be a quick, down, dirty, pick up the piece that you need. Like, oh, that one. Rule number 1, I'm doing that today. Or rule number 5, I'm doing that today. Or rule number 6, I'm doing that one today. And I want you to take it seriously. I want you to grab it, put it in, and start playing with it so that you can have those different results in your life, right? One of the things that I say in our alliance, which by the way, if you're not in, it's $100 a month or $1,000 a year. And it's my former, 10K a month mastermind, but this is our community of entrepreneurs all committed to helping each other grow, build, scale our business through customer journey, mindset, relationships, and really collaboration. Just send us a DM with Alliance and we'll send you the info. But one of the things that I say all the time is that you have to seed before you weed. And I broke down on Instagram today when I was sharing something because I had a moment where I realized that I'm living in the after state of following these rules and principles because, 18 months ago, I was 100 pounds heavier. I was extremely depressed. I lost everything, the conscious uncoupling and all of it. And the thing that I started to do was take my own advice, but it wasn't complicated advice. It wasn't compensatory advice. It wasn't swinging for the fences. It was really, really valuing consistency over intensity. And as I look at this list of these 7 habits, they're really the combination of that. And so what are these 7 habits, right? So the first thing that Stephen Covey breaks down is that we have paradigms and principles. And our paradigms are also known as our mental maps. They shape our perceptions and behavior in the world. And so to achieve effectiveness, we must align our paradigms with the universal principles of human effectiveness. And he has 7 laws or 7 habits, I'd consider them laws, of highly effective people. Habit number 1 is be proactive. Habit number 2 is begin with the end in mind. Habit number 3 is put first things first. Habit number 4 is think win-win. Habit number 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood. Habit number 6 is synergize. And habit number 7 is sharpen the saw. And what he talks about is his inside-out approach, where personal and interpersonal effectiveness starts from within. Real change starts with self-improvement and focusing on one's character. And so Alex Sharfen, dear friend of mine who's been on the show, one of the most popular episodes, says that you don't have the business or life you want because you haven't become the person to run it, right? There's really 2 buckets in that place. There's the amount of practice in thinking and operating like that person or that entrepreneur before you're there. And the other part of that is believing that it's possible. And once you have that, building habits or behaviors that protect that, knowing that if you plant a seed and you do not water it or care for it, you'll never get a harvest. But there is a somewhat of a long period between when that seed goes in the ground and then it sprouts to give you food. And if you don't consistently care for it, we can't reap the rewards of it. And so I say in the Alliance, our job is to seed before we weed. It's to plant the new habits, the new behaviors, and the new beliefs in place now to shift our mind map or paradigm and do it consistently before we weed the world, the noise, the stories, and all those pieces. so that when it comes time to eat, we have a garden full of harvest. And we can look back and be like, holy moly, I realized I made it. So let's go through these. Habit number 1, be proactive. Proactive people recognize that they are responsible and choose their response in any situation. Proactive people recognize that they are responsible and choose their response to any situation. So how do you start to be proactive? You focus on what you can control, your circle of influence, rather than what you can't control, which is your circle of concern. So there's a lot of noise that can happen around us, but if it paralyzes us and stops us from taking action on the things that we can control, it's a lose-lose game. Habit number 2 is begin with the end in mind. Define your mission and goals in life, and this habit involves envisioning your ideal future and working towards it. We have this in the Alliance right when you get onboarded. We have a vivid visioning exercise where you have to go paint your vivid vision and then overlay the perfect calendar and reverse engineer what your habits, your goals, and your actions would have to look like to be able to accomplish that or get closer. Then we have our quadrants, which is the behavioral model where you put those into practice with tangible and measurable goals to protect your consistency to become that person. So how do you start to begin with the end in mind? You either join the Alliance and do that, or you start by writing a personal mission statement that reflects your values and goals, not your tasks, your values and goals. Number 3 is you put first things first. So by putting first things first, what you're doing is you're prioritizing your tasks based on importance rather than urgency. Effective people organize and execute around their most important priorities. And there can be a ton of urgency around us. But if I allow the entire world, like right now I'm packing the studio up in the next couple of hours to move to a new house where I won't have it set up. There's a lot of things happening, but if I allow that urgency to get in the way of me recording this podcast, I'm not prioritizing what's important. I'm reacting to what's urgent. So how do you start to put first things first? You start by using Stephen Covey's time management matrix to focus on quadrant 2 activities. So you can Google it. It's incredible. It's really easy. It's the time management matrix by Stephen Covey. And quadrant 2 are the activities that are important and not urgent. And you prioritize those, and then you earn the right to go handle the things in the other bucket. Which brings us to number 4, habit of number 4, which is think win-win. Win-win is based on the abundance mentality, believing that there is plenty for everybody. And I believe in this all day because it also shifts us when we're in a place of gratitude and focusing on wins to tune our reticular activating system to see more opportunity instead of being limited by the constraint that we might be feeling. And so how do you start to think win-win? You build strong relationships based on trust and mutual benefit. And this could require an audit of relationships, an audit of where you spend your time, an audit of who you spend your time around, and asking yourself some simple questions. When I'm around this or in this bucket, does it make me want to be a better version, or do I feel like a lesser version? When I'm with this person, can I be fully authentic and honest, no matter what season I'm in or what my mess might look like? Or do I reserve myself or hold things back, which is really at the deepest level being out of alignment? So that's how you think win-win, which brings us to habit number 5, which is seek first to understand, then to be understood. So this habit emphasizes the importance of active listening and understanding others' perspectives, whether that's the perspective of your close relationships, your team, your customers, your potential customers, colleagues that you work with, or even yourself. We fall into this trap so often in this narrative of telling ourselves these horrible stories that we would never allow anybody else to say to us, or we'd never want to say to our kids or people we love, but yet we justify saying them to ourselves instead of asking ourselves questions that feelings are normal, emotions are normal, and if we understand where they're coming from, we can mitigate them and make a different choice, but not if we're trying to be right. And so how do you start to seek first and then be understood is you practice empathetic listening to truly understand another person's point of view. And if you're doing this to yourself, I recommend getting it out of your head. You can record an audio and listen back to it and realize how you're speaking. You can get a piece of paper and a pen, and you can write down your challenge and use the Chinese 7 whys, which is why, and start to understand, to find neutrality in that point of view so that you can make adjustments with clear information in front of you. Which brings us to habit number 6, which is Synergize. So Synergize is combining the strengths of people through positive teamwork. Synergy is the result of cooperative efforts being greater than the sum of individual efforts, right? So this means that when you're working, when you're in your life, whether it's with your partner, with your team, with colleagues, is that you guys have a shared vision where both are collaborating towards it and working on the inputs to create that, but being unattached to the outcome or result, right? You can't make adjustments. Like if you're going to lose 100 pounds, you can't measure your progress by one day of working out and then changing it. You have to stay committed to that outcome and make adjustments as you go. But doing it alone is the loneliest game. And I truly believe at this point in my life and career that none of us can do it alone, and we're not supposed to. And so you start by valuing and leveraging the differences in people's strengths, perspectives, and backgrounds, and working with those people or your team or your relationships to help you navigate where you're going. Me and Ashley do this incredibly well because we are two completely different people and two of the same people at the same time. And we play tag all day. She's really, really good at so many things that I really, really suck at. And she's really, really good at things that I'm really, really good at because I don't think she sucks at anything. She blows my mind every day. But we'll have a shared vision, like our event coming up or something we want to do. And we'll look at it and we'll grab different parts and pieces. She's like, I'll do this. I'm like, I'll do this. And we play into each other's strengths. And then we help each other with our weaknesses. So then number 7, the 7th habit of highly effective people is they sharpen the saw. And so they can engage in continuous self-renewal and self-care in 4 areas. They're physical, they're social and emotional, they're mental, and they're spiritual. And even before I read this book, in the Alliance, we have what are called the Sacred Lightkeeper quadrants, which everybody asks me, how'd you lose the weight? How'd you rebuild the business after losing it? How are you navigating this? Well, I basically applied this to myself and followed it consistently. And in those buckets, they're the buckets that are required for every one of our needs to be met, to stay focused, to stay clear, to build evidence and confidence, but also to have a plan when that bucket of urgency pops up that tends to confuse us. And so how do you start to sharpen the saw? Is you regularly renew and improve yourself to maintain and increase your effectiveness. What got us here today isn't going to get us here tomorrow. How I work out today is very different than when I was a competitive athlete and when I was 100 pounds heavier. But now it's all attached to my goal in the future, to 30, 40 years in the future. How I run the business, how I record these podcasts, how I do videos is very, very different. So I make constant iterations to my day and my practices to be able to protect that, to keep stretching myself beyond what I think my capability is, but never burning myself out, to be able to maintain that consistency and build that muscle. And so I'm going to summarize these again really, really quickly, because these are the habits that are genuinely designed to get you there. And this book is incredible. Like at minimum, I highly recommend you listen or read this book. And there's a lot of similar flavors, like Benjamin Hardy's personality isn't permanent and 10x is better than 2x, fix into the same bucket. Dear friend, a man I love dearly, Bo Eason, wrote an incredible book called There's No Plan B for Your A Game. And so these 7 habits are clear, tangible, measurable habits that close the hiding places where the noise of the world gets in the way and gives us an actual plan to follow. And so many of you want plans and practices. But when you have them, you have to commit to following them and fall in love with delayed gratification. And if you want to know more about delayed gratification, Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights, is absolutely incredible. And he breaks it down so well, because when you finish filming a movie, it might be 1.5 years until you get that Oscar nomination. And if you were attached to that, it would get in the way of you filming your next movie. So you genuinely have to fall in love with the process. And your life responds to your effort. And so you have to believe that you're doing it and give it your all and trust the process and put it in. And for me, that's with my faith, but with consistency over time. So habit number 1, be proactive. Habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. Habit number 3, put first things first. Habit number 4, think win-win. Habit number 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Habit number 6, synergize. And habit number 7, sharpen. And the beautiful thing about these habits and these behaviors and the things that I talked about is that none of us were born with these. And quite frankly, 2 years ago, I thought I had all this figured out. I thought I knew these. I don't know anything. Nothing. I know that when I follow these every day, it makes me a better person. It makes me a better man. It gives me better results. And I've also learned that the moment I think I've made it, I'm going to lose it all. And so you're going to hear me talking about these till the cows come home, until I'm removed from this beautiful earth and I'm no longer here. And then hopefully the words still resonate for a whole lot longer, because this is what the world needs. This is what we need as entrepreneurs, to be able to build ourselves to the best version of ourselves, to be able to follow the plan and the path that gives us the ability to lead, to convert people, to get them results, to change the world, and to love them all in the process by loving ourselves and caring enough about ourselves to prioritize these things, knowing that they're planting the seeds in our garden that are going to lead to the harvest that we can eat and then we can give to other people. And so that's what I wanted to share with you today. And so I can't wait to hear what you think about this show, which one of these habits you're focusing on, if you read the book, when you read the book, what you take away from it. And the most important thing is to put these into practice. I said this at the beginning of the show, and I'll say it again right now. People drastically overvalue intensity and drastically undervalue consistency. And if you pick these and are consistent with them and practice them, that muscle can only get stronger and you can only get better. So I wish you the most beautiful of days. Say goodbye to this studio, because all the lights are coming down today, and I might even record like a hybrid Frankenstein version in the next day or two before I have to officially move it out. But we'll see what I do. We'll see where I record. We'll see what it looks like. We'll see if I set up in my car, my driveway, a coffee shop. Who knows? I'll figure it out. I'll take the next bite. And I'll just keep thinking win-win, because it's a really good one that's in here. So I love you all to pieces. I wish you the most beautiful day. God bless. Remember that relationships will always beat algorithms, and I'll either see you in the next episode or you'll hear me in your earballs. But either way, we're out.